إن يوم الفصل كان ميقاتا يوم ينفخ في الصور فتأتون أفواجا وفتحت السماء فكانت أبوابا وسيرت الجبال فكانت سرابا إن جهنم كانت مرصادا للطاغين مآبا لابثين فيها أحقابا لا يذوقون فيها بردا ولا شرابا إلا حميما وغساقا جزاء وفاقا إنهم كانوا لا يرجون حسابا وكذبوا بآياتنا كذابا وكل شيء أحصيناه كتابا فذوقوا فلن نزيدكم إلا عذابا إن يوم الفصل كان ميقاتا يوم ينفخ في الصور فتأتون أفواجا وفتحت السماء فكانت أبوابا وسيرت الجبال فكانت سرابا إن جهنم كانت مرصادا للطاغين مآبا لابثين فيها أحقابا لا يذوقون فيها بردا ولا شرابا إلا حميما وغساقا جزاء وفاقا إنهم كانوا لا يرجون حسابا وكذبوا بآياتنا كذابا وكل شيء أحصيناه كتابا فذوقوا فلن نزيدكم إلا عذابا
Go back to the first paragraph. What was the whole problem? The whole problem was a denial of the hereafter. So now it's coming back to that problem. Now that you've been put in your place, now we can talk about that which you were asking about or being sarcastic about. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, "Inna yawm al-fasli kana miqata." No doubt, the day of al-fasl. Al-fasl in Arabic is fasl literally means to take two things that are together and to separate them so much that they're clearly apart from one another. This day of separation, this day of parting, this day of clear distinction between two things had already been appointed. Miqat is what's called dharf zaman. This time was bound to come. It was a fixed time. It was like clockwork. It had to happen. Allah says, يَوْمَ يُنْفَخُ فِي الصُّورِ فَتَأْتُونَ أَفْوَاجًا. The day on which the breath will be blown into the sur, the trumpet, which is commonly called, but literally the sur in Arabic means the horn. فَتَأْتُونَ أَفْوَاجًا. All of you will come forward as a result in multitudes, in armies. And so we find Allah Azza wa Jal turning towards the kuffar and talking to them, not about them. There's a tool in Arabic to illustrate your anger at the one by first not talking to them directly and then eventually turning to them and hitting them by surprise. This is what we do in the classroom. Like, for example, the teacher is teaching the class and, one of the children, they failed the test, right? So the teacher walks in and says, some people didn't do very good on their exam. And now everybody's kind of nervous, but they're not sure if it's them. And in the middle of his yelling at the students, all of a sudden he points at Abdullah and says, "You, by the way." You know what happens to Abdullah? He's caught off guard all of a sudden, right? This is a consistent tool in the Quran in the way Allah executes a threat. This is the same thing that happens in this surah. فَتَأْتُونَ أَفْوَاجًا. One of the benefits of the word ata ya'ti in Arabic is that it doesn't just mean to come. But ata means to come also means to submit. So فَتَأْتُونَ أَفْوَاجًا, you will submit yourselves in multitudes also. Not only will you come forward in multitudes, you'll give yourselves up in multitudes. وَفُتِحَتِ السَّمَاءُ فَكَانَتْ أَبْوَابًا. Now you notice Allah Azza wa Jal in this surah, when He was explaining His power, He said, وَجَعَلْنَا وَبَنَيْنَا فَوْقَكُمْ سَبْعًا شِدَادًا, that Allah constructed over you 7 heavens. Now those same heavens that Allah has the power to destroy. And He said, وَفُتِحَتِ السَّمَاءُ فَكَانَتْ أَبْوَابًا. The sky will be torn open, ripped open literally. فَكَانَتْ أَبْوَابًا, then it is as though it was doors. And this is from the balagha of the Quran. What does it mean that the sky will be like doors? In construction, what's the most loose part of the construction of the building? That's the door. That's the one that opens and closes a lot. If you want to break something in the house, what's the first thing that's going to break? Or get damaged? It's the door. So Allah Azza wa Jal speaks of this magnificent construction and says it'll look like the whole thing is the weakest construction, the door. You'll see cracks all over the place. Now He speaks of those same mountains, and He says, وَسُيِّرَتِ الْجِبَالِ. سُيِّرَتِ الْجِبَالِ is used for something that moves easily. This is the word used for smooth. Like if you're casually walking around, then you're doing tasir. No effort. If you're running, that's a little different, right? But if you're just casually moving, this is tasir. Allah says that the mountains will be moving with ease. The last thing you would associate with movement, not to mention casual movement, is the mountain. But Allah says, وَسُيِّرَتِ الْجِبَالِ, and then He adds فَكَانَتْ سَرَابًا. And this has multiple effects. The first effect, first of all, sarab means a mirage. Literally, it means a mirage. Then they'll turn into a mirage, meaning like, you know how a mirage floats in the air? So it'll be almost like the mountains are floating. When the human eye will see the mountains moving, they're not going to believe it. What are they going to think? It's going to appear to them as though this is a mirage. This can't really be happening. فَكَانَتْ سَرَابًا. Then Allah Azza wa Jal now comes to the point. You see, there were 2 warnings, right? كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ ثُمَّ كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ. There were two of them. The first one was for the day of judgment. That is, إِنَّ يَوْمَ الْفَصْلِ كَانَ مِيقَاتًا يَوْمَ يُنْفَخُ فِي الصُّورِ فَتَأْتُونَ أَفْوَاجًا وَفُتِحَتِ السَّمَاءُ فَكَانَتْ أَبْوَابًا وَسُيِّرَتِ الْجِبَالُ فَكَانَتْ سَرَابًا. Now all of this was the first كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ الْقِيَامَةِ يَوْمَ الْفَصْلِ. What's the second كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ? Soon they're going to find out again. This is Jahannam. This is the second time they're going to find out. So Qiyamah and then An-Nar. Now we go forward, we find the next depiction. Inna Jahannama kanat mirsada. No doubt the hellfire has always been waiting in ambush. Mirsad, there's another word that's related to it, marsad. This comes from rasada in Arabic. This refers to the one who is trying to ambush. That's marsad. Mirsad, which is a different word, is a place ideal for ambush. Allah describes the hellfire as a place that's been hiding and waiting to attack. That's how it's been described. كَانَتْ مِرْصَادًا. Then, who is it in ambush for? لِلطَّاغِينَ مَآبًا. It is in ambush for al-taghin. Allah didn't say here al-kafirin or al-mushrikeen. So many other words could have been al-zalimin, al-fasiqeen. Specifically the word used here is al-taghin. Because this is not talking about the kufr is the outside. What's on the inside? It's tughyan. It's rebellion. I want to do what I want to do. So Allah says this ambush of the hellfire, it's waiting in ambush for who? For the rebellious. And then He says ma'aba, a place that they will have to keep going back to. Meaning it illustrates they're going to try to escape and it keeps sucking them back in. لِلطَّاغِينَ مَآبًا, a place where you come back to rest. You can't get away from it. لَابِثِينَ فِيهَا أَحْقَابًا. This is very important ayah. Ahqaba is the plural of haqb. A haqb is 80 years, every day of which is 1,000 years. Regardless, even if it's 80 years and every day is 1,000 years, is that infinite or finite? In the end, that's finite, right? So it led some mufassirun to argue, and this has been negated thoroughly, that the hellfire in the end will end. It won't be there the whole time. But actually, Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah commented that Allah didn't say haqban, He said ahqaban. Haqban would have been one set of 80 years, every day of which is 1,000 years. But Allah said ahqaban, which means they are multiple. So He says the jama', the plural, illustrates that there's no end to it. When you finish one haqb, what happens? The next haqb begins. When you finish the second one, the next one begins, and so on and so forth. And it's an endless series of plurals. The kafir would think, I have spent an entire haqb, maybe I'm done. As soon as that false hope takes over him, the next haqb begins. Now we speak of the two kinds of torture that Allah highlights in this surah.